Welcome to the Mac Power Users. I'm David Sparks, and joined as always by your friend of mine, Mr. Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am very excited to talk about feedback on the old Mac Power Users. We get to do this about every 2 months or so, 2 or 3 months. And we have the greatest listeners of all of podcasting. You guys send us great questions, and this episode is no different. Got a nice load here of things to talk about, and let's get to it.
Yeah, it sounds good. We're going to start with some housekeeping as always. Today on More Power Users, that's the longer ad-free version of the show that we do each week. We're going to talk some about Apple's recent executive turnover. A lot of stuff happening at Apple at the top.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk through that. I'm especially interested to hear your perspective on this, David, as someone who has worked with a lot of different types of companies in your legal career. And I think you've probably got a bit more experience with some of the stuff than I do. So that'll be fun. And if you say, hey, that sounds cool, More Power Users sounds awesome. Well, good news. It's currently on sale. You can go to giverelay.com and you will get 20% off an annual membership. That makes it $56 for the year. Gang, that's basically $1 an episode. And that means you don't hear ads, you get more content from us, and you get a bunch of goodies from Relay, the network that we're on. So I'd love for you to go check it out. GiveRelay.com. It's the first link in the show notes this week. We would love to have you join us and support us directly. It goes a really long way to keeping the lights on around here.
And, you know, a lot of times this time of year, if you're like me, people are asking you if they want to get you a gift, you know, what are you interested in? And to be honest, the older I get, the less I'm interested in. And this would be a great gift for you. So we can set it up that way too. Just go on the site, send the link to a family member, and get yourself the gift of Mac Power Users.
That's right. We all have that aunt who, you know, they drew our name at Thanksgiving to get us a Christmas present, but they don't know what to get us. This is the way.
And we don't want another sweater. I mean, I don't.
No, I'm good.
I just cleaned my closet yesterday, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a ninja operation because my wife is really bad about keeping things.
Okay.
So thankfully she doesn't listen to this show.
Mm-hmm.
But she left for work at 8. By 10 o'clock, I had 3 trash bags at Goodwill of clothes, and it felt so good.
That's awesome.
Do you get that feeling? Do you get those happy chemicals when you get rid of stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've discovered that we moved a lot of stuff to our new house that we didn't need. And so been going through stuff. But yeah, I recently did my closet. I tend to sort of like buy clothes in bulk. And so my like 5 flannel shirts or 6 flannel shirts that I wear during cold weather were like 5 or 6 years old and were like pretty thin and falling apart. So on Black Friday, I ordered some new ones. If you're watching the video, you can see me in one right now. I think it's pretty handsome. And so I just went through that process. Like I replaced a bunch of flannel shirts and, you know, it's very exciting. But yeah, it feels good. You know, you clean out some stuff.
I got an email from a listener saying that I've been wearing the same jacket in the last like 2 episodes of Mac Power Users. So first of all, I'm happy that you guys are tracking my outfits, but it's not the same shirt. I found some shirts I really like, and I bought several of them that are the same color. So it's not the same black T-shirt in every episode, just so you know.
You just need like a little number on them. So like, no, this is number 3.
I guess, but either way, it's fun, and but you don't want to take that sweater to Goodwill in a couple of years when you could have had a year of Mac Power Users. So go check it out.
There you go. I was wondering how we had gotten there. Good time.
Yeah, I know. Well, you talk to me, you're going to go a little astray once in a while. I can't help it.
Sometimes that's true.
Yeah, that just comes with the territory.
Yes. So listener feedback. We got a bunch of stuff across a wide variety of topics this week. And we're going to start with the smart home. And so Tilbert in the forums, if you're not familiar with the forums, they're at talk.macpowerusers.com. A great place to ask questions, interact with the show. It's awesome. So Tilbert said, Stephen recently talked about the Aqara smart home, and he mentioned a limitation if placing the sensors too far away from the hub. I did think, this is me, not Tilbert now, that I did mention that Zigbee and Z-Wave and these other ones are like node-based, so they can hop.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to Tilbert. I use sensors from the company called YoLink with multiple devices, leak sensors, temperature sensors, and smart switches. The advantage I see with YoLink is that they advertise a quarter-mile range. I live on acreage and have various sensors located hundreds of feet from the hub in outbuildings, and I've never had a problem with disconnection. If people need to cover long distances, I highly recommend looking at YoLink. So I am familiar with this company because of our friends on the Accidental Tech podcast. They have discovered the goodness of YoLink for a bunch of different reasons. Casey is using a sensor as mailbox. Marco needed one temperature sensors in the walk-in freezers in the restaurant that he and Tiff bought. And it was like the only thing that could penetrate like the metal enclosure of the freezer. And so I don't have personal experience with YoLink. I already had some Akara stuff that I moved. And so I was kind of already in their system. But especially if you're in the situation like Tilbert, where you have an outbuilding or you need something at a mailbox or maybe at a gate at the end of the driveway, YoLink really could be the way to go. I've only heard good things about them.
I am so interested. I hadn't heard of these until this came in, and I have that exact problem. I live in a tract home, so the mailbox is like one house away. Like there's my house, then there's another house, and then there's the mailbox on the street. And my mailman is hilarious. He likes to come at like 6 p.m. So I'm walking out there all day trying to get the mail, and it's never there. So I would love to have an automated system to let me know when that door opens on the mailbox. And I have tried Akara. I've tried a couple different sensors out there, and none of them have ever worked. And I'm almost willing to throw the dice on a YoLink Cub just for that one switch to see if it works. So I'm going to be checking this out.
Yeah, I had not thought about doing a mailbox sensor. At my previous house, the mailbox, it was like a neighborhood built in the 50s, and everyone's mailboxes were attached to the house, right? Like, so the mail carrier had to walk up each driveway. And so then my front porch camera would see them. And if you were in the house, you would hear them open the mailbox, put the mail in. It didn't come in the house. It wasn't like a mail drop, but you could hear it. And now my mailbox is at the street, and I sometimes forget to check it for days on end, which has caused problems already. And I have a front camera that can see the mailbox, but I don't have notifications for vehicles, because then I'd get notified every time someone drives down the street, which I do not want. And so maybe something like this could be the answer for my problem as well. Although I will say I'm getting ready to have pretty good Wi-Fi in the front yard, actually adding a couple of outdoor access points to get Wi-Fi into the yard, because I have basically no cell service in my neighborhood. But maybe YoLink's the way to go. Maybe both of us look at this and we report back.
Yeah, I do love that every time we talk, your Ubiquity system just gets a little bigger.
That's how it goes, man. That's how it goes. What can you say? So yeah, and I think YoLink is definitely worth a look if you have these range issues.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll be reporting back maybe in the next feedback episode.
Yeah,
money will be spent, as they say. iPadOS 26. Robert wrote in an alternate universe, Apple would make a foldable iPad that unfolds to a 17 or 21 inch screen as their first foldable. I would insta buy that at any price.
Yeah. This goes to the thing that we've talked about, especially in our recent State of the Platform episodes, is that because Apple's the only company making hardware for their software, like iPadOS doesn't exist on a device like this because Apple doesn't make it. And while I have plenty of things to say about Windows and Android and how they're not my platforms of choice, that is that is like a key difference between the ecosystems, right? That a company can just make a trifold phone or a laptop that rolls out and the screen gets taller. And there's a lot more optionality there in hardware. But David, you're a bigger iPad user than I am. Does this sort of device, does this interest you in how you use the iPad?
I think that there is something to a ginormous iPad that I just can't put my finger on. And I would be very curious to spend some time with a giant iPad. we talking about hardware exploration. Microsoft made that Surface, the tilting Surface computer.
Mm-hmm.
What was it called? It was like a drafting table. You would pull it down so you could draw on it, or you
The
push it up.
Surface Studio.
Yeah, the Surface Studio. And it looked like an iMac, but it would fold down like a drafting table. And this is not the first time I've said on this show that I went in a Microsoft store and looked at the hardware, and I thought, what if this was a Mac when it was vertical and it was an iPad when you pulled it down?
Yeah.
What could that be like? And, I guess it's too far out on the fringe for Apple to make it. I think I would probably, like Robert, buy that if they made it. And I think the iPad could be very interesting on a bigger screen. I'm a visual thinker. I like drawing. I've also talked about how I use those giant sticky notes, the big Post-its when I write on my table over there to figure something out. I think a bigger version of that, digital, would be nice. So, yeah, I'd be very curious to see that as well, Robert. That was rumored for a while that they were working on both of those, a folding iPhone and a folding iMac. I think the current rumor is that they haven't given up on the iMac. I'm sorry, they haven't given up on the folding iPad, but it's being pushed back several years. And my guess would be they're going to look to see how well received the folding iPhone is before they decide whether or not to make it. But I'd be even more interested in, just like I said, that Surface Studio concept where it doesn't have a big hinge down the middle, but it's just a giant iPad. That would be an interesting device. And Apple certainly has the know-how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they could do it all on one chip. I think they probably could. I mean, it's the same chip. It might have to be like the old days where you boot into iPad versus Mac. I don't know. That is something I'd love that my guess is will never exist.
Yeah, I probably not. But at some point, like I keep having this question when we did the iPad episode, we did State of the Platforms. It's like, man, my iPad Pro in a keyboard case, or the thing we're getting ready to talk about, an iPad with an external display.
Yeah.
Like the lines are blurrier than ever between these things. And so I don't know. I do think a folding iPhone is a more mass market product than a folding iPad. So
yeah,
I think and that's where the market is, right? Samsung and lots of other companies have folding phones. A lot of them we don't get here in the US because they're like Chinese companies. But I think that's where Apple's going to go first. And then, maybe if that's successful, or they feel like, okay, we can make an iPad Studio or something like it down the road, it would be fascinating to see.
It's also interesting. Apple is so rarely first to market with a form factor.
Yeah.
Like I would say, they're definitely leading the tablet market with the iPad.
They are the tablet market. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Really.
And I'm not aware of any like third-party tablet makers that have a folding tablet, and Apple usually waits 3 or 4 years after somebody brings one to market before they get around to it, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be odd for them to be the first one to market with something like this. But I do think iPad with a giant screen you can write on might be a very interesting product. I'd have to use it to know.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of the iPad, we had some more feedback. Ben wrote in, "Thank you for the iPad deep dive in episode 824. I share your sentiments. A longer look into what iPadOS 26 has enabled has been lacking in the discourse, and I hope your podcast starts more conversations." Ben goes on, "I routinely use my iPad with a studio display. The experience and flexibility of the iPad is now more than enough for most of my personal computing and rare work travel needs." This is something that we touched on in the iPad episode, but after seeing Ben's note, I spent some more time with the iPad hooked up to my studio display.
Yeah.
And man, it is so close to using a Mac. Like, especially if you have, like, I did the whole thing. I paired it with an external keyboard and trackpad. The iPad was off to the side. And yeah, you can tell it's iPadOS because things work a little bit differently. The stoplights being in the center of the menu bars is weird. But once you get multiple apps open and the windows are overlapping, and like I do this thing where messages is always in the bottom right corner of the screen or on the space that messages is on. And so like, I drug messages down there, and like I had Notion open and I had Safari open. I was like, oh, this really feels like I'm just using a Mac. Now,
Yeah.
where you run into the challenges are like, well, I want Keyboard Maestro, and I want spaces and all these things that the Mac has to offer that the iPad doesn't. But for a lot of people, I think it's really come a long way. Now, how common is it for someone to have an iPad with an external display? I can't imagine that's a huge number of users, but if you are in that camp or you're curious about it, it really is pretty good at this point.
Yeah, I think the bias from tech press and podcasters is to poo-poo this,
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because of the way we work. Like you and I are making videos and high-end audio stuff and things for which the Mac really excels at and is pretty difficult, but not impossible on an iPad. But there's a lot of people in the world that just, do basic computing, some word processing, email, web stuff. And I think for a lot of those folks, this is the life, right? You've got one little thin piece of glass that's your computer. You can plug it into a screen with a keyboard. You can throw it in your bag if you're going out of town for a few days. And maybe at some point in my life, that will be my computing system as well. But right now, it doesn't fit for the type of work I do. But I'm just really happy to see emails like this come in because for so long, there was just a little too much friction in there, even for those people to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, when they first put in external display support, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was just mirrored and 4:3, which that mode still exists in settings displays on the iPad. You can say extend my screen or mirror it. Mirror it is still pretty bad. And I would complain that there's no clamshell mode, best I can tell. Like my iPad was in a case. I closed the case, the iPad went to sleep, and the display went off. And maybe I was doing something wrong, but it doesn't seem to be there. That's something else I would like to see. Like just if I just want the iPad closed and plug in a cable and not see the iPad screen. But yeah, I mean it is okay. Do you remember years ago? If I can find a link, I will put it in the show notes. I can't promise I'm going to find a link to this because this is off the cuff. But David, do you remember probably like 15 years ago, Apple had a patent filing. Now, companies patent everything they think of just for defensive reasons. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever going to be a product. But it was this concept of you would have like a studio display and it had a slot in the side and you would like slide a MacBook Air in. And it was like the old Duo Dock idea, but for the modern age. The iPad plus an external display is kind of like that in a way.
Yeah, that was on Patently Apple. I remember it
Yeah.
years and years ago. And you might find, I thought, if memory serves, I thought they did also one with an iPad that slots in and even a phone
Probably.
at some point. And the idea, even more portable would be the phones get so powerful that you go to work or home and you just drop your phone into something and it turns into your Mac, which honestly we're not that far from for most uses.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah. Ben, thanks for the note. I don't think you're alone, Ben. I think there's a lot of people out there that are aware of this doing it. As I said in that show, I think part of the problem is the peak time for Apple to really double down on the iPad, I think was 5 years ago. I think a lot of people have just given up on it as a compute platform because they were just so slow in getting it beyond just a big iPhone kind of analogy. And I also worry that software developers have kind of given up on it. I mean, right now, native apps seem to be scarce on all Apple platforms.
Yeah.
At least new, interesting ones. And so they kind of missed the window a bit, but that doesn't change the fact that they are doing it now, and it's useful. And like I said, I have not turned on my laptop. I said I'd do it until the end of the year, except for one thing that I absolutely had to use a Mac for, which was interfacing with my laser cutter. I just, it's a pretty great platform. And I understand, iPad diehards out there. I think now it's easier than ever to really get the most out of it.
Yeah. It's cool.
Okay, laptop as desktop. Richard wrote in. Stephen recently explained his work setup was a single cable from his laptop to a docking station. How does he deal with drives and other peripherals attached to the dock when he wants to disconnect his laptop? Does he first manually eject everything so macOS doesn't complain? What do you do, Stephen?
I do. I eject drives. I'm not a monster. So typically, like right now, I have my Time Machine, which is an external SSD. It's mounted, and then two network drives that are volumes on my NAS. I also have plugged in a nightly clone that I use Carbon Copy Cloner for, but I have Carbon Copy Cloner mount and unmount that volume as it needs. And so, yeah, I do eject those volumes before I unplug it. That's good disk hygiene. I think it's probably less important in APFS, but I am by no means telling you to yank cables out. I think the system complains, so I'm going to eject. Back in the day, I used to use an app called Mountain that lived in the menu bar, and you could mount and eject volumes with ease. You could have presets. You could eject all. That app seems to be out of, like, it's not being worked on anymore. It's still around, but even in our own forums, the developer mentioned now almost 3 years ago that it was no longer actively being worked on. There may be other apps that make this easier, but for me, it's not a big deal to find them on my desktop and hit Command E and eject them. No big deal at all.
Have you considered writing a keyboard maestro script for that? I think you could probably do that pretty easily.
Yeah, I could, and I could map it to like Command Option Control E or something, just like eject all volumes. Yeah, I'll look into that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, like even you could do it with a little terminal foo and just put a terminal command in to do the ejection, trigger it from Keyboard Maestro, and then at the same time you could like do other things like you'd want to do before you disconnected.
Yeah.
The one question for you, Steven, how often do you do that? How often do you take your laptop off of your desk and work with it?
Not a ton. I mean, that's actually something I thought about when I saw Richard's question. I was like, actually, it's not. It's maybe a few times a month. I do on occasion have to like take it, because I want to work somewhere else, or maybe I've got a meeting or something that I'm working on where I'd prefer to have the Mac. But I do have a MacBook Air that's kind of like a minimum install, basically just my iCloud stuff on it that I can take. I've got the iPad as well. So it doesn't leave the desk super often. Like I said, maybe a few times a month.
The more I think about it, the less inclined I am to head your direction when I upgrade this Mac Studio.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm probably going to just get a new Mac Studio when it's time, because I was really like having all the I/O straight into the device. And I, like you, I have a MacBook Air and I have a really good iPad. And I find that when I want to work mobile or even go on vacation or go to Cupertino for some Apple thing, those little computers are enough for me to do whatever I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so convenient to have a permanent setup. Like I don't need to have a Mac Mini running in a closet because my main Mac is the main Mac, and you get some performance improvements when you buy one of these as opposed to a laptop where everything's, contained in that little package. I'm probably, when it's time to upgrade this thing, I think I'm going to probably just get another Mac Studio.
Sure. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I definitely am not using the laptop as a desktop thing to its full potential. But when I do take it somewhere, I do like having my entire
Full
setup.
system. Yeah. And like you said, when you talked about this transition, it's like you only have one set of scripts. You don't have to keep a bunch of stuff in sync that you would otherwise. There's definite advantages to it, but I still really like my kind of setup. And I probably think that that'll just be something you and I do differently.
Yeah. And you did mention Keyboard Maestro. We're planning an episode about Keyboard Maestro. It's fantastic. I've moved a lot of stuff into it. We'll talk about that once we get there.
Yeah, if you've got questions on Keyboard Maestro, get them to us, but get them to us soon.
Yeah. I'll make a forum post and have it in there.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password. Go to 1password.com/MPU and start protecting yourself on the internet today. Are you trapped in credential chaos? Save and manage login credentials, financial information, and more in 1Password for a simpler, more secure online life. I've been a 1Password for Family subscriber since they first released it, and I was using the app long before that. I really like the family subscription. We're at the end of the year. This is a great time to get it set up with your family. And with the Mac Power Users discount, you can get it for just $3.59 a month. It gives you everything you need to secure your family with up to 5 individual family members. You can share unlimited vaults, manage access with simple admin controls, and teach your family safe and secure online habits. With 1Password for Families, you can take the hassle out of generating passwords and wave goodbye to tedious password resets. Save and autofill unique passwords, credit cards, addresses, and more with the best password manager for individual and families. I'll tell you the key here, gang. Get your kids on it early, and when they ask you for things like the Netflix password, don't tell them what it is. Just tell them it's in 1Password. Force them to spend some time in there. I've been doing that with my kids for years, and now they understand, so they don't bug me, and they're using a safe and secure password manager at the same time. I feel like it's a win-win for a parent. With 1Password, you can share logins, credit cards, and more. You can tackle security issues with Watchtower, where it finds services that you're working with that may be compromised or where you've used the same password more than once. It's really a full suite of security tools for a very reasonable cost. So this holiday season, give your family the gift of security. Head over to 1password.com/MPU and get that nice sweet discount on a family plan. Let them know you heard about it here on the Mac Power Users. And thanks 1Password for all of your support of the Mac Power Users.
Okay, up next we have some feedback about AirTags. Justin wrote in, following up to the gift guide episode, something I found earlier that I think is a great addition to AirTags. They are rechargeable CR2032 batteries that I'm using from Amazon. I haven't used them long enough to compare the lifespan to a plain 2032, but even if they don't last quite as long, they're rechargeable and potentially better for the environment. I had no idea these existed. This is really cool. They're just those little coin cell batteries, and it comes with a little USB charger, and you can drop them in there and recharge them. This is awesome. I'm obviously a huge fan of anything rechargeable over disposable. I did recently buy a pack of 2032s, but when it's time again, I think I will check these out.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out as well. How do you store your little coin cell batteries? What do you do with them?
So I mentioned on that episode that my wife got me the Battery Daddy. It has a little pocket for coin batteries.
I have that question was a setup because I just wanted to talk about my storage. I have Gridfinity coin cell storage.
Nice.
And I have used somebody else's model for this, but I've got a bunch of little like 1x1 Gridfinity units, and it's got the name of the battery on the side, and I've got all of them in one place. And when I open the drawer and see all my batteries lined up, it makes me happy. Can I just say that?
I totally get it. Totally get it. I'm getting ready to start the process of Gridfinitying some of my stuff in my garage. I can't wait.
You are in for so much joy. HomePods. Roland wrote in, I was a big-time surprised when I heard that HomePod's dying on your show, since I was not aware there's an issue with them. Here's why. I run audio in my home with 11 HomePods, original version 1, 4 HomePod minis, 1 Airport Express powering a radio via stereo jack. I have bought most of the HomePods secondhand, not the minis though, and they have been running without problem for roughly 10 years.
That's incredible. We also got feedback of people's HomePods who have died, so maybe it's hit or miss. 11 HomePods, like, okay, Roland. I'm looking dead in the camera if you're watching, Roland.
Yeah.
This is too many HomePods. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Unless you live in a castle, I'm not sure you need this many HomePods.
Well, is this confession time? Because
how many do you have?
I have 5.
Oh, I got more than that.
Oh, do you?
Let's see.
This
Let
is
me.
not HomePod minis. This is HomePods.
Oh, okay. I have no HomePods, but I have. I just opened the Home app here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 HomePod minis.
Yeah, I've got 3 Generation 1 HomePods and 2 Generation 2 HomePods. And when we listen to Christmas music, for instance, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I love it, you know.
Yeah.
I hadn't had any problem. I had an extra HomePod 1 out in the shop that died on me. But that's the only one I've had go bad. And after we recorded that show, I heard from my sister, who I bought her HomePod years ago. And this year is the year that her HomePod died. So
Oh man,
it does happen, you know. But 11, you know, you win, Roland. I don't know what else to say.
that's a bunch.
Yeah.
One thing that I have been using on my HomePods, and I think it ended up getting cut from the platform outline, but you can use HomePods and HomePod Minis as an intercom.
Yeah.
So you can send or receive basically intercom messages through the HomePod. And it's pretty great. I'll have a link to Apple's support page about this. I generally do it in the Home app. There's a little like sound wave icon you can press, and then it is an intercom. You can message a specific room or zone. So if you live in a 2-story house, you could have downstairs as a zone, upstairs as a zone, and then you tap done, and it gets played. And we use it around the house some. You know, sometimes it's just to be goofy, but like sometimes it's useful. So go check that out if you have multiple HomePods or maybe a sort of a spread out house. The HomePod intercom system can be pretty cool.
Yeah, we've been doing that too, and I've kind of become insufferable to my kids with it, but it's fun to announce that dinner is served.
Yeah.
When they're up in their rooms. I want to get one of those little chimes, you know, bum, bum, bum.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go all the way. Or even better, maybe I need a captain's whistle, like on shipboard. But this is really fun. If you haven't played with this feature, it's rock solid. I mean,
yeah.
I'm surprised how good it works.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, now we need to talk about the thing that makes a lot of people sad, the lack of a big iMac.
Yeah.
Jason wrote in, "You have convinced me that the big iMac is not coming back, so I need to upgrade to something else. What do you recommend?"
Yeah. So Jason and I corresponded a bit.
Okay.
And he was really believing that, you know, we're going to get the big iMac again. And now we're 4 or 5 years into the new iMac, and it hasn't showed up. And so after we published that show on the state of the Mac, and he said, "Dave, okay, what do I do?" Because I was really hoping. So I made a recommendation to him. I wanted to hear what your recommendation is. So mine was, if you're not going to get your big iMac, but you want something like it, I recommended he get a Mac Mini Pro. Talking to him, I think a Mac Mini actually would have been fine. But, you know, Mac power user, so get a Pro. And an Apple Studio Display, which is ultimately what he bought. But I also told him maybe wait on the Studio Display, because there's a lot of rumors we're going to get a new one, but he wanted it now, so he went and got the Apple Studio Display. But that sent me down a whole rabbit hole. You know, do you recommend the Mac Mini versus the Mac Studio? I know this is ground we kind of covered in the state of the platform, but I think that if you need a Mac Studio, you know. And if you don't know, then you don't need it. And the other thing is non-Apple screens. I mean, Apple, even if Apple makes a new Studio Display, there are some great displays out there right now. One that really caught my eye is Asus has one called the ProArc 6K. I'll put a link in the notes. It's a 6K screen, which is the same size, 31.5 inches. It's similar to the Mac Pro display, but it's $1,300, which is $300 more than the stand for the Apple display. So there's some good displays out there now. Like if you wanted to do this without spending a ton of money, you get a Mac Mini plus a third-party display that you're happy with, And you're close. I mean, I get it that it's not really an iMac, but you're still doing pretty good.
Yeah. The Mac Mini is so small that it doesn't, like, you could just put it behind the stand and you'll never see it, right?
Yeah.
It's not intrusive. Neither really is the Mac Studio, but you could mount either under your desk, right? I mean, the Mac Mini
Yeah.
you could put like in the wire tray thing under your desk and like literally never see it. So I think I think that's the way to go. The Mac Mini, the M4 and the M4 Pro, they're great. They're really good. And I think you're right that most people, almost no one needs a Mac Studio unless you're doing a lot of heavy work, and most people aren't. So the Mac Mini is a great. I mean, really, it's like the MacBook Air is the default laptop answer. The Mac Mini, I think, is the default desktop answer if you want to go that route. I will say though, I didn't know Jason had made a purchase. So in hindsight, but I do think if you are out there considering, okay, I had a big iMac, what do I do? Find a display you like. I would say use this as an opportunity to think about laptop as a desktop. A MacBook Air, if you're looking at the base Mac Mini, MacBook Air, basically the same machine inside. Think about it, because it really is nice if you want that optionality. And if you do it like I do it, it's like I'm sitting at a desktop, right? I've got keyboard and mouse and a screen and speakers and a webcam, and the laptop is just off there to the side doing its thing. So consider it.
Well, I didn't even tell him to consider it, and he bought one. So I might hear back from Jason saying I should have written Steven.
Yeah. Put this.
But, in my head, he's like, I want an iMac. Well,
yeah.
That's now a Mac Mini plus a display.
That's true. You can always email us. There's a feedback form. The link's always in the show notes. There's the forms. There's lots of ways to get our attention. Okay, charging stations. Dan wrote in, what is your charging station setup? How do you manage multiple devices overnight? What are you doing?
I have greatly simplified it. I had the Studio Neat dock, which my wife took possession of, and I realized I don't really need much. So I got off Amazon a little stand. I'll put a link in the notes. It's a piece of walnut with an embedded MagSafe charger. It's not the Apple MagSafe charger. Mm-hmm. My guess is it charges very slowly. But I put it on my desk, and when I put my phone on it in the side view, it gives me the display that I like. And it was very inexpensive. It's probably, I don't even know if it's safe. It's just like, it's a thing I randomly got off Amazon. But I've been happy with that. For my nightstand, I've been trying an experiment where I just drilled a hole in the back of my nightstand mm-hmm. and ran some cables through it. And I have been at night just plugging in a USB 3 port and keeping the phone inside the drawer in the nightstand. Mm-hmm. And that's more of just a way for me not to wake up and look at the phone, add a degree of friction to it.
Okay.
And that's been working fine. When I have I often wear my watch to bed. So if I need to know what time it is, I can tell what time it is. Then there's other charging. I guess since we're talking just charging in general, also through that little drilled hole, I have a watch charger. So when I get up, I bought one of those fancy chargers you recommended. And so I put my watch on the fast charger mm-hmm. when I take showers, and basically I'm not there. So I can have the watch charge pretty frequently.
Yeah.
I also have a downstairs in the studio, I've got a little corner where I've got some Anchor device I bought years ago that's got a bunch of USB-C ports in it, fairly powerful. And I've got those coming up the back of a cabinet. So I've got a bunch of power I can plug into anytime I want in the corner of the studio to charge anything I need to. So, because there's always stuff to charge. I've got like batteries in my door locks. I've got, mm-hmm. iPad and all the stuff that you need to charge. So I've got that like in a corner of the studio.
Yeah.
But my day-to-day charging really is not difficult because I work at home. It doesn't matter that my phone charger goes slow. And I've really been kind of enjoying the experiment of just having the phone in the drawer throughout mm-hmm. the night.
That's great. So for me, my desk and my nightstand is a now sadly discontinued Studio Neat Material Dock. It's one of the combos. On the nightstand, the phone lays down. On the desk, the phone stands up. And so I use usually sometimes I use like the widget view where you turn the phone in landscape orientation. The feature whose name always escapes me as I need to say it on a podcast.
Nightstand, is it?
What is it called? I don't know. Whatever it's called. You turn the phone sideways and you get widgets. I like that a lot on the desk, and it has a place for a watch and an AirPod case. I, like you, sleep with my watch on, and so I did upgrade that nightstand to a fast charging, so I can drop my Apple Watch Ultra on it when I shower, and that is plenty. Like, I never hit low power on the Apple Watch Ultra 3. Don't really have to think about it. But I do also have a need to charge kind of a fleet of devices for testing and working on apps with Underscore. And so I have that on a side table kind of next to my desk. I have the links in the show notes, but one is just a box it's like a bamboo topped box, and it comes with pegs, so you can change kind of how wide devices are. And you put devices on the top and the cables come out, and you can charge it all nice and neat. And inside of it, I have an Anker Prime Charger 200 watt. It's a 6-port, so it's one cable from the wall, 6 USB, I think 4 USB-C and 2 are USB-A. And I can just have my devices sitting there nicely on their side, charging. I can unplug it really easily. The cable doesn't like disappear. It stays where it is. And that's just kind of off to the side. I know that at some point we mentioned Apple's 40 to 60 watt dynamic charger, which is really great if you're looking for a fast charger. But also Apple's dual USB-C charger is also really great. We have one of those in the kitchen with a couple USB-C cables on it, so anyone can just plug in their phone pretty quickly and be good to go.
I mentioned this on the show recently, but I got to say it again. I 3D printed a charger for my AirPods, and it holds the MagSafe upside down. And then I used double-sided tape to stick it to the back of my monitor.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of reach your hand under the monitor. You don't see it, but it's there. And then you can just pull it off. And it's got like a little guide around it with a 3D print. And so that is like one of my favorite charging things, because like they're completely out of sight, but they're always charging. And with the AirPods Pro case, the magnetic attraction between the MagSafe and the case is strong enough to hold them upside down. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The other thing I would say about that is just be very careful about what chargers you buy. I say that saying after telling you that I got this cheap charger on my desk, but the actual power conversion is being done by an Apple charger.
Mm-hmm.
And I only buy Apple or Anker chargers. If you want to see something interesting, Adam Savage on his Tested YouTube channel years ago did a thing where they x-rayed a bunch of chargers. And like some of these that you get off Amazon, the ground wire is not connected. It's just like they're really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you want a reputable company making the power converter charger bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you buy them from Amazon, you'll get alerted if there's a recall. I actually had a charging brick that I bought forever ago I think it was from Anker.
Yeah.
And it was recalled. I was like, oh, I gotta go deal with that now. But yeah, I agree. Don't buy a fast charger from a gas station and put it on your nightstand.
Well,
don't do it.
I would like to be even more clear that you got a recall because you bought an Anker. I think there are other chargers on Amazon you would not get that recall for. So,
like there would never be any notice if there was an issue, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. So just spend the money, get the Apple or the Anker chargers, and otherwise, have fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay, notifications. Christina wrote in, how do you manage notifications across devices? Any strategies to prevent notification overload? I will say we are also working on an outline about notifications and focus modes, but I think we can give a high level here. So what's your high level thoughts on notifications?
Just be brutal.
Yep.
Just be brutal. I mean, just if you have too many notifications, you don't read any notifications.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really that simple. And Apple makes it easy to be brutal now. Slide on one you don't like, nuke it.
Mm-hmm. I totally in agreement. And I would say explore scheduled summaries. A lot of apps I want notifications from, but I don't need them immediately. And so I actually have several scheduled summaries, and the notifications build up in there and they all get delivered at once. And I really, really like that feature. So stay tuned. We're going to do a lot more about that, but I wanted to at least touch on Christina's question today.
Yeah, I am just so precious with my time. I really don't want anything disturbing me. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that show. We're going to dive deep on focus modes and notifications, and this is something we need to do regularly on the old Mac Power Users.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by DevonThink. DevonThink To Go 4.0 Kepler is here. It brings Mac-level power to iOS, closing the feature gap. Named after Johannes Kepler, the astronomer, it has AI integration throughout and a built-in chat system called Global Chat Plus. This gives you per-document conversations, remembering up to 100 chats. The AI tools can summarize documents, extract text from images, generate images itself, auto-tag, and rename files. The AI-based search assistant allows for writing queries in plain English instead of a complex search syntax that you have to look up every time. The versioning feature has a ton of great options, including automatically keeping multiple versions of documents, while the revised proof databases can do a lot of cool stuff and are perfect for legal work, regulations, and audit trails. It also has EPUB support and an updated UI for iOS 26's Liquid Glass. All DevonThink Pro and DevonThink Server users get DevonThink To Go now for free. All you need to do is just keep your license current with updates. And exclusively for MPU listeners, you'll get 10% off when you go to devontechnologies.com/MPU. That's devontechnologies.com/MPU. Our thanks to DevonThink for the support of the show and all of Relay.
Okay, Stephen, I was telling you in an earlier show how I like to only change software between Christmas and New Year's. It's like a thing I've been doing. The reason is because I had this history of jumping tools in the middle of the year, only to want to jump to another one 6 months later. And so I've been trying to put guardrails around that. And so every year when we get to Christmas, I always think, okay, what am I doing this year? And got some notes in from listeners asking, what am I doing? What are my big decisions? So I thought it'd be fun in this episode to talk about kind of platform usage. By platform, we're talking about software, really. What software platforms are we planning for next year? And this question coming in forced me to kind of settle some things. So I've been thinking about this a lot the last few weeks.
Okay.
But I have made decisions. Decisions have been made.
Okay. I'm excited.
So I'm looking at it two ways. I feel like, the first thing is because of my job and, the labs and the podcast, I like to have my fingers in a lot of different software so I can talk about them, write automations for them. So I'm a little more unusual than most people. I'm using more tools than most people would. If I didn't do this, I probably would narrow it even more. But I have broken it down between personal and MacSparky. And just to get the personal out of the way, this year I spent working with Apple productivity apps, I realized they're very good and good enough where my personal stuff is just in those. I'm using reminders and notes to run my personal life. I just got a reminder in California, you got to pay your property tax by December 10th. Just got the notice the other day from Apple Reminders to pay the bill. It's just perfectly fine. And it's allowing me to keep my fingers in those applications as well. So personal stuff, that's an easy one. Just using the Apple Productivity Suite, good enough. The more complex one is the MacSparky stuff. And I'll tell you that I really did miss in my year in the wild of using reminders. I did miss OmniFocus quite a bit. So I'm going back to OmniFocus for the MacSparky stuff. it just capture is so much easier. Scripting is so much easier. There's a lot of really great stuff with OmniFocus. I feel like they took a bit of a shellacking because it took them so long to get the new version out, but they did it with Swift UI, and now they're just like at this breakneck pace releasing new updates to it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate the work being done on it, and I also just appreciate how easy it is to use the app. So I've moved my MacSparky stuff in there. The other app that has been on my radar since we covered it on the show, Note Plan. You remember we did a show on it.
Yes.
And, I keep a lot of text in Obsidian. I've decided for next year I'm going to try and use Note Plan for all the MacSparky Notes stuff. And actually, I've started that transition already. They make it really easy. They have a notes importer. And because it's also just a folder full of Markdown folders, I could take my Obsidian stuff and import it very easily. And I'm still figuring out the mix between Note Plan and OmniFocus. Some people would say, well, you don't need OmniFocus. Then you can do all your task stuff in Note Plan too. I'm just going to see how it goes. I'm still kind of early days in it, but I really like the app. And as I've been spending more time getting ready for this transition into it, just having a nice solid Markdown app that is also native, which is kind of a theme that we haven't talked about much, but there's a lot of apps these days that are not native, and Note Plan is one that is. And like, it looks great when you use it on the iPad and the iPhone, and has all those benefits that you get from native apps. And I really like that. So that's become a big thing. Still, Apple Notes is a little bit in the mix for MacSparky when I've got some sharing stuff, but primarily Apple Notes is for personal things at this point. And then same thing with calendar apps. I still do need Fantastical. I'm still paying my subscription, and it's just because I set a lot of meetings and things, and they have that scheduling feature that's just so great, and I use that all the time. So kind of looking into next year for me, personal is in the Apple Productivity Suite, and MacSparky stuff is going to be a big chunk of it's going to be done with OmniFocus and Note Plan. The mix between those two I haven't quite figured out yet.
Okay. That's fascinating to me as someone who does not separate work and personal tasks. Now, I do separate notes. So like Apple Notes is basically all personal and like 512 pixel stuff. But because all my other work is collaborative, the work is in different buckets. So like Relay admin stuff is Google Docs. CrossForward is also Google Docs, but a separate account. You and I are using Notion. Like my note and sort of writing stuff is really segmented. But tasks I find I found in the past it just doesn't work for me. I want a whole picture of my day in one place, both personal and professional. And so that's fascinating that you do it separately. I think I'd lost track of that.
Well, that's kind of new.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is because I made the Apple Productivity Suite, there's a bunch of MacSparky Labs members who are all in on it.
Sure.
And I want to bump into that app regularly because then I see friction points where I can write a script to make it easier for people and share it with labs. Or, I'm kind of intentionally separating them so I can just get more reps in with reminders as it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
But for my big list, the MacSparky stuff, I really do prefer OmniFocus. So, like I said, this kind of grows out of the way I work.
Yeah.
And then, I still have an analog component to this. Each day, for me, boils down to a handwritten list that I work from each day. I don't spend my day in OmniFocus or reminders. I look at those as sources of things I might do, and then I write those things down, and I work from that list throughout the day. And that's changed too going into next year. I have been using the analog cards for years, but what I was finding is like planning something into the next few days, or when I'm away from my desk, I would always, forget to bring a card with me. So I've switched over the last 2 months as a test, and now it's going to be permanent for next year of using field notes.
Okay.
Followed you down that path.
Yes.
They're just really great. And I make like a page for each day at the beginning of the week. And then Saturday and Sunday share a page. So with 6 pages, basically three sets of pages, I can have the whole week set out. And then when something happens on Monday, I'm like, I need to deal with that on Thursday. I'll just write it down straight into the field note. And then at the end of the day, when I do my shutdown, I'll look at, if there's personal reminders or OmniFocus reminders, I'll write that stuff down in the field notes, and then just work through that as I go through the day.
No, that's great. I think, I mean, one thing I like about field notes is it's just like one thing, right? I'm not having
Yeah.
to deal with cards and what if I want to take it all somewhere. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to rebuild the hipster PDA from back in the day. People
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
But no, that's fantastic. I think that, and we've talked a lot about this, but there is definitely room for analog tools for even folks like us.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's a real shift, right? Like if I'm sitting down to like write something. So just the other day, I had some stuff that I wanted to write out, just kind of like some personal stuff. And I was taking a kid somewhere, and it was basically the other side of town. I was like, well, I can drive home, but I'm going to be home for like 20 minutes before I have to leave again. It's like, well, I'll just like go to like a coffee shop. It was like, no computer, no iPad, just like my field notes and a pen, and wrote through some stuff, right? It's extremely useful for me.
Yeah. But on the analog stuff, I also still am a big advocate of the plotter thing.
Yeah.
And I use that. I have a bunch of stuff I've written down there. I journal into it almost daily. Again, journaling for me is hybrid.
Mhm.
I struggled with that over the last few years. Like I kept wanting to pick one or the other, like just do analog or just do digital. And ultimately, I realized the way my brain works, I really like handwriting out entries. I also like dictating entries. They scratch different areas of my brain. And so now I just do both of them just fine. And the workflow I use on the field notes, which is you may be interested in, is like I said, I kind of map out the week, and I start from the first page of the notes with that. I use about a book a month. And then from the back of the book forward, I write notes down and lists and things that I want, or if I need to tear a page out. So I kind of start with kind of a daily page from the beginning to I usually get about 2/3 through the book, and then I work from the back of it to write notes down, like if I was like at the coffee shop like you.
Okay.
And then when the two meet, it's time for a new book. And that's been working for me. I know some people like carry two different books, one for, agenda and one for thoughts. And I just put them all in one, and it fits in your pocket, and it's great.
Okay. So for me, looking at this, because I like this idea of like changes for the new year. One of them is I'm not committing to a full change, so I'm not doing what you're doing. But one of my like things I want to do in the new year is I want to spend more time with Apple Journal. I have nothing against day one. I like day one, but Journal has been evolving. It is on all the platforms now. And I want to kind of just see what those features are. We did an episode on it way back when it first launched. And I don't think this is a full like revisit episode of Mac Power Users. But I want to see what Apple's up to in there. I will say, because I have looked heavily, there's not a reliable way to get day one entries into Journal automatically. There was like a shortcut floating around on Reddit that some people say it worked. It was a disaster for me. Basically, it hit an entry, and then every entry after that it imported was the same content over and over. So not ideal. But Journal's one that I want to keep my eye on. The other big one, though, and it's actually already happened, is going back to reminders. So 2 years ago, I used reminders for a whole year. And I kind of just got tired of like needing a third-party app for natural language entry, which is how I want to do my tasks. And we had some feedback. It's not in here, but on the Mac, there's not a way to like change the font size in reminders. So like the font's pretty small and it's not very customizable. And so I ended up going back to Todoist, except for our shared grocery list, because reminders just kills it when it comes to grocery lists.
Shared lists, yeah.
And so because my wife and I have a couple of other shared lists, I was like, I'm going to go back to Todoist. I'm going to move you back to Todoist. And she finally came to me and was like, oh, I'm going back to reminders. I was like, okay, well, the shared family lists are really important to me. And so I don't want to have, like, again, earlier, I don't want to separate these things. I don't want like family tasks in one app and everything else in another. And so I'm back in reminders as well. I'm using Good Task on the Mac, which is a reminders client. It is really powerful, but I am only using it on the Mac. On the iPhone and the iPad, the little bit that I do there in terms of tasks, I am using reminders. But Good Tasks is like it's great on the Mac, and it has a lot of that's where I do most of my like task management. So I'll have a link in the show notes to Good Task. I've tried Good Task on and off over the years. I will say in the past I have had sync issues where the iPhone or iPad fall out of sync with the Mac. Last time I mentioned that on a show, the developer reached out. We talked. That seems to be resolved, which is great. But I find it most useful on the Mac. So that's kind of where Good Tasks lives.
Have you figured out the Spotlight quick capture with reminders?
No, because I went back to Alfred.
Oh.
So I'm using Insta Remind, which is lets you do something very similar, but just everywhere.
Yeah, I would really look at it again because it's a native solution from Apple.
Yeah,
and you can add a keyboard shortcut to it right in the Spotlight kind of shortcut segment, and it prompts you for what's the task, what's the list, and I feel like that is one of the best capture methods now, and it's from Apple. You just have to keep Spotlight around. Like I keep Spotlight on control space and Alfred on command space, but there are things I use Spotlight for, and that would be one of them. Yeah. Check it out. You may find that solves a lot of problems for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't see, other than those things, I don't see a big change in the way that I'm working coming in 26. Like I'm actually quite happy with using Notion for the shows, MPU and Connected, my other show, like all in Notion with a database of topics and episodes, and that's working great, I think, and not really looking to change up anything else. And so I think for me, 25 into 26 will be relatively stable, with the experimentation of Apple Journal being something I want to spend some time on.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that. Like I know you've been a big user of Day One.
Yeah.
I've got 5,500 entries in Day One.
Yeah.
Going back to December of 2011.
Yeah, I got 2,500.
I just can't imagine moving out of it. I'm so deep in it. A couple times I've printed books out of it where I took specific journals and just had it printed into a book, which was kind of nice. And they're just so, it is definitely the OmniFocus compared to reminders as opposed to the journal app. And I do want the better app. I still, like I said, I struggle because I do handwrite a lot, but I've just started scanning those and putting them in Day One as well. So I've got like one place with everything. I keep thinking about the time we had to get evacuated because a fire came down the street, and I left all my journals at the house because I was in a rush. And I would like to keep those, although I really get the benefit of my journaling primarily at the moment that I journal. I don't go back and read them that much. But either way, so that's interesting to me. I didn't mention Notion, but Notion, I found kind of peace with Notion this year as well. I'm not a huge fan of these web apps like Notion, but it is so damn useful for the stuff we do here and the stuff we do with the Mac Sparky people. And what I realized is that Notion for me is a very advanced status board. It's not a place of work. It's a place of status. Like I don't do a lot of work in Notion. Usually even like outlines for the show, often I pull together a bunch of research and a note, and then I go into the note in Notion that we have for the show to update it. For the stuff I write, like newsletters I write in drafts, I don't write them in Notion. So Notion is kind of the last place things go when I work with other people, and a place to see where everything stands. And that kind of changed my mentality around Notion, where I'm like, okay, it's a really advanced status board. That's for me. That doesn't mean I have to do all my work here in this web app. And that has kind of solved it. Like, I think Notion and I are in a good place now too.
Yeah. You have to, for me, I think my journey is very similar. Like it's weird in a lot of ways, but what it can do is so useful to me that I'm willing to put up with the weirdness.
Well, even like you and I haven't talked about this, but a couple times over the past year, I like dropped all my task list relating to Mac Power users into the Notion database. And it kind of makes sense to have everything in one place. but I kind of hated it. And like getting the links out of Notion is hard. And like you can link to a Notion note, but you can't link from Notion to like an email. It doesn't work. And don't write me to tell me all the weird ways you can do that because they're all weird. And I just didn't really care for it as a working platform, but as a kind of status platform, it's just fine. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Man, already talking about the new year. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that time of year.
It is.
Like the nice thing about this system for me is that like, yeah, I think I can just commit to it that next year I'm going to be using OmniFocus and Note Plan. I'm not sure what the balance is going to be between them. It's going to be a fun experiment to figure out as I go through the year.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, I'm setting up some things, moving some things, and in general, just, getting things in place. And I'm giving myself permission to reconsider it next December and not giving myself, permission to change my mind in March.
Yeah.
This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm, the powerful live streaming platform for Mac. Get a month for free. Go to ecamm.com/MPU. If you're a Mac user who creates video or podcasts, you need Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the all-in-one studio built exclusively for Mac, so it looks, feels, and performs like a native pro app should. Whether you're live streaming, recording a podcast, or producing training videos, Ecamm gives you broadcast-level control with drag-and-drop simplicity. Switch cameras, share your screen, cue overlays, and control audio, all without ever leaving your Mac. Creating content can get really expensive. There's a lot of expensive equipment out there that people will tell you need. The thing is, Ecamm solves so many of those problems for you. It lets you create quality video for a fraction of the cost. And the learning curve is a lot smoother as well. Expensive equipment needs babysitting. Ecamm gives it all to you right on your screen. With Ecamm, you can brand your show with titles, graphics, and lower thirds. You can also pull in guests via interview mode or record multi-track audio for perfect post-production. And if you're into automation, Ecamm works beautifully with tools and apps like Stream Deck and Loopback, as well as many Mac tools you already know and love. You can upgrade to Pro and unlock Ecamm for Zoom, letting you feed your polished setup straight into Zoom meetings or webinars, share Zoom comments on screen, and even capture each participant's audio and video separately for easy post-production work. Get 1 month for free. Go to ecamm.com/MPU and use the code MPU. That's a full month of Ecamm Live. Go to ecamm.com/MPU with the code MPU. And our thanks to Ecamm for supporting the Mac Power Users and Olive Relay.
Okay, stuff we're playing with. This is something we like doing at the end of feedback episodes. Stuff that we're experimenting with, either for the show or just for ourselves. And I had mentioned on a previous episode that I was looking at some automation with lights. And I picked up an Aqara Presence multi-sensor. I picked up the FP300, which is their new one. And it supports Zigbee, Thread, and Matter. And I'll say off the bat, I set it up in the Aqara app, and I said, hey, use Thread. And I had quite a few issues with it, like just not communicating or being very slow to communicate. I did some Googling. People said, yeah, that's what's going on. And so I reset it back to use, Zigbee, the thing that older Aqara stuff uses. And it's been great. So I have it in the garage. What I wanted is if you open the garage door right, like a single light bulb comes on in my ancient garage door opener, but it's pretty dim and I've got LED lighting in there and I like it, to be bright. Or if you step into the garage from the house and if your hands are full or something. So it's in the garage. If it sees presence and I have it, it took a while. I kind of like walked around and like held it against the wall and like, see what it could see and that sort of thing. I got it mounted where I want it. So if you step into the garage, it sees that a person is there. And it turns on the overhead light because I ended up purchasing several Lutron Cassetta light switches. And I sent this to a friend of mine who's been big into these for years. And I said, you were right. These things are awesome.
Yeah.
They act like normal light switches, but they're also on your network, so you can control them with automation or remotely. I bought just the original smart switch. They have fancier ones. I just needed the on off. I didn't need a dimmer or anything for this. And so in HomeKit, I have an automation that says if presence is detected, then turn the light on. And after the status goes to no presence detected, turn the light off after 3 minutes. Because I discovered I have a workshop off my garage, and I went into the workshop for for like a minute, and the light had already turned off in the garage. Like, okay, I need some buffer. I also added sort of a dependent automation. I put an Aqara motion sensor. I didn't need a full presence sensor, just like a cheap motion sensor in the workshop. So if the light is on in the garage and the motion sensor detects motion, keep the light on. And so once there's no motion and there's no presence, then the light can turn off after 3 minutes. And man, it's working awesome. Like it does exactly what I want it to do. Like the garage door's up and the light's off. You walk a couple steps into the garage and the light comes on. You open the door into the garage from the house. It sees you. The light comes on. It turns off automatically. And the cassette switches are awesome. I only bought 3 of them. I bought a 3-pack. And look, I know if you're looking at the link in the show notes, these things are expensive. Like it's kind of ridiculous. That's why I only bought 3, and it's why I bought the simplest one they had. But I also added it to the light, or replaced the light switches that control my front porch and back porch lights. And so I now have those come on, before sunset and turn off after sunrise in the mornings. And I've just been super happy with this. I kind of want to put a cassette light switch everywhere, but that would be a very expensive project. So for now, I'm just doing it where I want automation, and the light is controlled by a light switch and not a floor switch. But yeah, it's working really well.
So on the cassette switches, I have upgraded most of the ones in the house. And the way I do it, I started this years ago. And like you, I bought 2 or 3 to begin with, but then just every couple months, I'd buy another one. And I just kind of had a mental list of the places I wanted them the most.
Mm-hmm.
And over a course of a couple years, I upgraded, the ones that I wanted upgraded. And it's just so nice. Like at night, like you hear a noise, you push a button, all the lights come on downstairs, and you're good. And I think you should just resolve to start buying one every couple months. It doesn't hurt as much that way.
Yeah.
And you'll find that you're great. They're so rock solid. I've just never had one fail. And because this is something that your non-techie family has to deal with, to them, it's no big deal. You push a button, the light comes on. You push a button, the light goes off. That's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but you still have all that going underneath it. Robert, in fact, the guy who sent in the feedback this week, Robert, is a consultant on this stuff, and he told me at one point that that they have like their own space. Like I don't know what the deal is, but these things just work, and it's like problem solved. And I tried the other stuff where you replace bulbs, but then you got to replace every bulb, and this is so much more convenient.
Yeah, I would much rather have cheap bulbs and expensive switches than the other way around.
Yeah.
And I did have someone write in and say the smart motion sensors that Lutron sells are rock solid. I had already bought the Aqara ones, and they've been solid too so far. But I'll say that too, like they also have motion and an occupancy sensor. They do require a hub. So I've got the hub right next to the Aqara one, behind the TV or next to the TV. It's in the center of the house. And I've had no issues with range on those things.
Now, your multi-princess sensor, I want to talk about that for a minute. First of all, does this thing require a cable to power it, or is it battery powered?
The sensor is it's like a thick coin cell battery. It's like the 2032 we talked about earlier in the AirTag. It's like one of those, but if you did the Z-axis like 4 times, like I don't know the number, but their website says it'll last. I think they said 2 years. And, mine's in the garage where it has temperature swings and stuff. We'll see how it goes. I will say if this thing dies relatively quickly, then I will try to find a solution that is native to HomeKit and you just plug into power. But so far, so good. But it's only been a couple weeks.
I think it's a real advantage that you don't need to run a cable to it, because the nature of these things is you stick them on the wall somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's really awkward to have a cable running to it. So I think that's a selling point. The prior ones, because I have the FP2,
Mm-hmm.
and that requires a cable, and where I have it, it's okay. But I think this is great. I looked it up. They're not even available on Amazon right now. They're probably so popular, but this solves the problem that so many people want with home automation, is that, like, I just want the lights to turn on when I walk in the room and turn off when I leave. And that was actually a really pesky problem until recently with these human presence sensors, because motion doesn't work if you sit still. Rosemary had a motion sensor in the bottom of her chair, just trying to get the thing to realize she was still in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these human presence sensors, if you haven't explored them, you should look into it, because it really does, like Steven said, make it work. So
Yep.
you walk in, the lights turn on, you walk out, the lights turn off. And now that they've got it without a separate power source, I'm like, wow, this is really great. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. And the presence, like it knows you're there. It's using millimeter wave, and the portability of it being battery power, like it's literally like mounted on the wall, kind of 6 feet up, just screwed into the wall. My family's very forgiving of these things, but I will say, like, everyone likes it because they don't have to think about turning the overhead light on in the garage or dealing with it. It's nice and bright when you open the garage door and a car pulls in. So it's been a hit, and I think a lot of that has to do with the cassette of switches. That at the end of the day, they are just light switches that are smart. So, like, if you want to turn it on manually, or say that it's dark outside and we want the front porch light on, I can go hit the button, or my 11-year-old can go hit the button and don't have to worry about talking to Siri or something. Everyone was right about these.
Yeah, the next great one is, like, if you have stairs, a stairway light with a human presence sensor. When in the middle of the night you get up, you get to the stairs, how that turn on automatically, so nobody's walking up and down the stairs in the dark.
Yeah,
I have also been thinking about home automation, and that is one of my Eufy floodlight cameras has bit the dust. I don't know what's going on. It won't connect to internet. I think it's just, it's been baked in the California sun for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's probably just dead.
It said, no thanks. So on Black Friday, I bought a replacement for it. But that kind of led to consideration for me. It's like, do I want to continue down this Eufy camera place that I'm at? So my camera situation is, I have several of these floodlight cameras on my external of my house. Any place that I had a wall mount, I put these things up. So I've got really good coverage of the outside of my house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. Somebody comes up, like, there was a thing going on where we had a Prius and people were stealing the catalytic converters, and that wasn't a problem, because if you walk up my driveway, it lights you up and you can clearly see you're on video. But I, since one failed, I thought, well, do I want to continue getting this brand?
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to kind of go with it. Having been with Eufy's cameras now for 4 or 5 years, generally I'm happy with them. I don't like that they don't work with HomeKit. The interior cameras they sell can work with HomeKit secure video, but it reduces the resolution to 1K because of HomeKit.
Mm-hmm.
And but I really just use them externally, and they store data either inside the camera itself or in a little unit on your network. It doesn't send it to their cloud, so I kind of like that element of it. And I also I have a Eufy robot vacuum, and I have the Eufy kind of holiday light thing. Mm-hmm. So I've already kind of invested into the platform. And it just made sense to buy another one. And they've gotten even better in the last 5 years. The new one has a higher resolution. I got it on Black Friday for like $130.
Nice.
It's, it's just not that expensive to put one up. And I've been generally happy with those. As much as it's frustrating, like, people say, well, don't you want it to show up in HomeKit? And that's true. But I gave my wife, she has the Eufy app, so she can see it too if she wants to. And, they're pretty reasonably priced, and they seem to be pretty stable units. So I'm still with Eufy for the external cameras. The internal cameras, I had some, but I switched those over to HomeKit Secure Video because I just didn't want them at all connected to really Eufy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized I just never used them. I had them set so they only turn on when nobody's home. And I guess it's kind of a anti-criminal thing, right? If somebody breaks into the house, I'm a little mixed on whether those things are worth the trouble or not. But but boy, if you approach my house, you're gonna looks like Fort Knox. I've got cameras everywhere. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And there's so many. I mean, there's so many ecosystems. Like my stuff
Yeah,
or I have 2 cameras. At the previous house, I had more because the studio was separate, right? But
yeah,
I've got I'm on the Unify stuff and really like it. I'm waiting on their new doorbell, which they've announced. Because my complaint about Unify's camera stuff is that they let some form factors age pretty badly, and the doorbell that you could get, the G4 doorbell, it really was kind of falling behind. And so when the G6 one is available, I'll pull the trigger on that and just upgrade it in spot, right? Because I already have Ethernet run out there. So
yeah. There's a lot of options. There's a real rumor that Apple's going to try and get into the component element of HomeKit in the next year or two.
mhm.
That they're going to start selling hardware. And I like the idea of doing it through Apple. That's something where you'd feel secure. Like some of these camera companies, the whole model is to get you to pay them to store the data for you. And I'm like, I'm not sure I want them even having the data, much less storing it for me,
Yeah.
and like there's some advantages to Apple doing this. So we'll see what happens next year. But overall, I've been pretty happy with the UV cameras. I thought I'd just check in on that.
Yeah. That's great.
You had a question for me about Rivian.
I did. Yeah. So we spoke about your Rivian experience maybe on the last feedback episode, but this headline grabbed my attention that Rivian is to offer iPhone car keys later this month. So this is an Apple Wallet feature that your card for your vehicle is in Apple Wallet. You go up, it sees the phone. I guess you tap or something, and it knows that it's there. My only experience with this was actually the home key stuff. My previous studio, I had a Cara smart lock on it, and I could use my phone or my watch to tap the sensor, and it would unlock the door. And we did speak about how on the gift guide episode how you are team no wallet. Is this something that you would use? Would you quit carrying your card key now and just have it on your phone?
I'm aspirationally team no wallet. I still usually carry a wallet. And one of the reasons is to have that backup key,
Mm-hmm.
that card key. Although I'll say whatever they're doing currently with the Rivian app works really good. I'd say 19 out of 20 times the car unlocks as I approach it. Sometimes it doesn't. And if I open the app and just swipe over and tap on the widget for the app, because it has a widget too, then it opens immediately. So sometimes I think maybe the app gets kicked out of memory or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it can't find it. So I think this would probably make that more stable.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to set the record straight a bit. I've heard from several listeners saying, well, I know you hate your Rivian infotainment system and blah, blah, blah. I heard from some people there's a third party developer out there that's written a thing where you can use CarPlay in a Rivian. I will find a link and put it in the notes. I forgot to do that before, but it sounds very kind of complicated, and I'm leasing the car. I don't think I want to get too hard into like rewriting the firmware,
Yeah.
but I don't hate it either. It's fine. My big complaints really are that it doesn't handle messaging well. The voice assistant isn't great in terms of like calling out music, and my wife doesn't understand it. So when she drives the car, she finds it frustrating because, she's used to CarPlay. But a lot of that is solved for me just having the phone in the cradle and just holding the button and talking to Siri, and then it usually takes care of it if I need it to. And in some ways, it's better than CarPlay. So I don't hate it. It's just I have friction points, and I just wish that we had the option of CarPlay. Like when this lease is up, whether I stick with Rivian or not, this will be a consideration, but it's not like a deal breaker at this point, at least. And then one other thing on the review, and since we did that episode, they've been making big changes to their self-driving and driving assistance stuff. I barely use that stuff, but it's getting better. I don't think they're really taking the Tesla route of like, we want the car to drive for you.
Sure.
But in terms of like when you're on the highway stuff, they've got some nice new features coming in. But everybody's cranky. All the review owners are cranky because it's only the Generation 2 that's getting these features because you got to have the good cameras.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have the G2, so I'm good.
Yeah, I know that was a complaint with the Gen 1 Rivians that the cameras around the car were kind of subpar. And that was something when I was watching the reviews of the Gen 2, it's like, oh, this looks like they really listened. And Rivian seems like a company that listens to its customers right until the point where they want CarPlay, I guess. But
well, yeah, I mean, they're it's a very responsive company. Like I had a little problem and they showed up at my house and fixed it. I've never owned a fancy car before. So I've never, maybe if you buy a Mercedes or a, expensive car, you're used to this, but this is all new to me. But I'm still continuing to enjoy it and fill it with lumber and people and drive it around. So it's a great car. They really are opinionated on this CarPlay thing. And like I said, when we talked about the last time, I'm okay with that, but you need to deliver the goods. Like it needs to handle some basic things really well. If somebody sends you a text message while you're driving down the road, it should handle that. And they keep promising it, and it's not here yet, but what it is. And that service that I was talking about, we've got now a link in the notes. It's called EV Play. And I heard from some listeners who actually installed it and they're very happy with it. Like I said, because I'm leasing the vehicle and I'm not that upset with it, I don't think I'm going to bother with it. It's a $400 thing to get it set up. And I think I'm fine with it as it is. But yeah, I don't hate it. I'm just kind of frustrated with pieces of it. So
sure.
I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Okay. Yeah. I don't have any experience with any self-driving cars. Like the closest I've ever had is my truck will beep if you leave the lane, which is really annoying. Yeah. So I have it turned off unless I'm on the interstate. Yeah. And the cruise control that uses like the auto cruise control, right? So if a car pulls in front of you, the truck will slow down.
And that's frankly the extent of the Rivian stuff I'm using, with the only one exception being when I drove up Interstate 5, which goes up the center of California. It's like, imagine a 5-hour road that is completely straight.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was driving all day and occasionally I would get in the slow lane and let it kind of take over with my hands on the wheels and me watching, but not being like fully driving.
Okay.
Just like you get behind a truck and just like let it go for 20 minutes and just keep you in the lane but my hands would be on the wheels. I'd be driving. I wouldn't be like reading a book or something, but just, it took a little bit of the tension out of you to let the car just kind of keep the speed going for you. So I don't think I've really used it to the full extent. They've got a big automation thing they're going to announce in December, which will maybe improve that. But I don't know where I'm going with all this stuff. But yeah, it's a good car. I like it. I'll be very curious to see what I do in a few years when the lease is up. Okay, that wraps it up for another feedback episode of the Mac Power Users. You can add feedback for the next show. Go to relay.fm/MPU and add feedback. If you want to sign up for membership, you can do that there. Take advantage of that deal while it lasts. Thank you to our sponsors today, 1Password, Ecamm, and Devon Technologies, makers of DevonThink. And if you're a more power user, stick around. We're going to talk about executive turnover at Apple. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.